Welcome to Frama Language, your daily place to learn practical and useful English. In this video, you'll learn common English words and phrases used in the office and workplace. These are important expressions that can help you communicate clearly with colleagues, participate in meetings, and handle professional situations with more confidence. By learning workplace vocabulary step by step, you'll improve your professional English and feel more comfortable using English in a work environment. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share with others who want to improve their workplace English. Let's get started. Let's start with the first word, deadline. Deadline means the final date or time by which something must be finished or submitted. It is a very common word used in workplaces, schools, and projects when talking about tasks that need to be completed within a specific time. This word is especially important in professional environments because meeting deadlines shows responsibility, organization, and reliability. You can use deadline when talking about the time limit for finishing work or completing a task. For example, in the present tense, you can say, "The deadline is tomorrow," or "She checks the deadline before starting her task." In the past tense, you might say, "I finished the project before the deadline," or "They missed the deadline." For the future, you can say, "I will complete the report before the deadline," or "We will meet the deadline." It is often used with verbs like meet, miss, or set, such as meet the deadline or set a deadline. Using deadline correctly helps you talk about time management and responsibilities more clearly in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, "The deadline is approaching," which you can use to remind people that the time limit is getting close. Let's continue with the second word, meeting. Meeting means a gathering of people where they come together to discuss work, share ideas, make decisions, or solve problems. It is a very common word used in workplaces, offices, and organizations when people need to communicate and plan tasks together. Meetings can be formal or informal and may happen in person or online. You can use meeting when talking about a discussion or gathering related to work or planning. For example, in the present tense, you can say, "I attend a meeting every morning," or "She leads the team meeting." In the past tense, you might say, "I attended a meeting yesterday," or "They had an important meeting." For the future, you can say, "I will join the meeting later," or "We will have a meeting tomorrow." It is often used with words like schedule, attend, or hold, such as schedule a meeting or hold a meeting. Using meeting correctly helps you communicate clearly in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, "Let's schedule a meeting," which you can use when you want to arrange a time to discuss something. Let's continue with the third word, task. Task means a piece of work or a specific job that needs to be done. It is a very common word used in workplaces, schools, and daily life when talking about responsibilities or duties that someone needs to complete. Tasks can be small or large, simple or complex, but they usually have a clear goal and sometimes a deadline. You can use task when talking about work or duties you need to complete. For example, in the Let's continue with the third word, task. Task means a piece of work or a specific job that needs to be done. It is a very common word used in workplaces, schools, and daily life when talking about responsibilities or duties that someone needs to complete. Tasks can be small or large, simple or complex, but they usually have a clear goal and sometimes a deadline. You can use task when talking about work or duties you need to complete. For example, in the present tense, you can say, "I complete my tasks every day," or "She manages several tasks at work." In the past tense, you might say, "I finished my task earlier," or "They completed all the tasks." For the future, you can say, "I will finish this task soon," or "We will start the task tomorrow." It is often used with verbs like complete, finish, or assign, such as complete a task or assign a task. Using task correctly helps you talk about responsibilities and work more clearly. A very common and useful sentence is, "I have an important task," which you can use when talking about work you need to complete. Let's continue with the fourth word, project. Project means a planned piece of work that is done over a period of time to achieve a specific goal. It is a very common word used in workplaces, schools, and organizations when people work together on a task that may take days, weeks, or even months to complete. Projects often involve planning, teamwork, and different responsibilities. You can use project when talking about an important assignment or work that requires effort and time. For example, in the present tense, you can say, I work on a new project, or she manages a large project. In the past tense, you might say, I completed the project last week, or they finished the project successfully. For the future, you can say, I will start a new project, or we will complete the project soon. It is often used with verbs like start, manage, work on, or complete, such as start a project or work on a project. Using project correctly helps you talk about work plans and responsibilities more clearly in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, I'm working on a project, which you can use when explaining what you are currently doing at work. Let's continue with the fifth word, feedback. Feedback means comments, suggestions, or opinions given about someone's work or performance to help them improve. It is a very common word used in workplaces, schools, and professional environments when people review work and share ideas for improvement. Feedback can be positive, showing what was done well, or constructive, suggesting ways to do better. You can use feedback when talking about responses or opinions about work, ideas, or performance. For example, in the present tense, you can say, I receive feedback from my manager, or she gives helpful feedback to her team. In the past tense, you might say, I received useful feedback, or they gave feedback on the report. For the future, you can say, I will give feedback later, or we will receive feedback after the presentation. It is often used with verbs like give, receive, or provide, such as give feedback or receive feedback. Using feedback correctly helps you communicate about improvement and evaluation more clearly in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, thank you for your feedback, which you can use to show appreciation for someone's comments or suggestions. Let's continue with the sixth word, follow up. Follow up means to take further action or check on something after an earlier conversation, task, or meeting. It is a very common phrase used in workplaces and professional communication when you want to make sure something has been completed, clarified, or discussed again. Following up helps keep tasks organized and ensures that nothing important is forgotten. You can use follow-up when you want to check progress or continue a discussion. For example, in the present tense, you can say, I follow up on my emails, or she follows up with the client. In the past tense, you might say, I followed up on the request, or they followed up after the meeting. For the future, you can say, I will follow up tomorrow, or we will follow up with more information. It is often used with words like emails, clients, requests, or meetings, such as follow up on an email or follow up with a client. Using follow up correctly helps you sound more professional and organized in the workplace. A very common and useful sentence is, I will follow up on this, which you can use to show that you will check or continue working on something later. Let's continue with the seventh word, schedule. Schedule means a plan that shows when activities, tasks, or events will happen. It is a very common word used in workplaces, offices, and daily life when organizing time and planning meetings, projects, or responsibilities. Having a schedule helps people manage their time better and complete their work more efficiently. You can use schedule when talking about planned times for activities or when arranging something for a specific time. For example, in the present tense, you can say, I check my schedule every morning, or she schedules meetings for the team. In the past tense, you might say, I scheduled an appointment, or they scheduled the meeting yesterday. For the future, you can say, I will schedule a meeting, or we will schedule the presentation next week. It is often used with verbs like check, create, or set, such as check a schedule or set a schedule. Using schedule correctly helps you talk about planning, and time management more clearly in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, "Let's schedule it," which you can use when suggesting to arrange something at a specific time. Let's continue with the 8th word, update. Update means to give the most recent information about something or to make something more current. It is a very common word used in workplaces and professional communication when sharing progress, changes, or new details about a task, project, or situation. Updates help teams stay informed and understand what is happening. You can use update when you are sharing new information or making changes. For example, in the present tense, you can say, "I update my manager about the project," or "She updates the team regularly." In the past tense, you might say, "I updated the report," or "They updated the system yesterday." For the future, you can say, "I will update you later," or "We will update the document tomorrow." It is often used with things like reports, projects, systems, or teams, such as update the report or update the team. Using update correctly helps you communicate clearly and professionally about progress and changes. A very common and useful sentence is, "I'll keep you updated," which you can use to promise that you will share new information when it becomes available. Let's continue with the 9th word, client. Client means a person or company that receives services or professional help from a business or professional. It is a very common word used in workplaces such as offices, agencies, consulting firms, and many service industries. Clients are important because they are the people or organizations that a business works with and provides services for. You can use client when talking about someone who receives professional services. For example, in the present tense, you can say, "I work with many clients," or "She speaks with a client every day." In the past tense, you might say, "I met a client yesterday," or "They helped their client solve the problem." For the future, you can say, "I will call the client later," or "We will meet the client tomorrow." It is often used with verbs like meet, help, or contact, such as meet a client or contact a client. Using client correctly helps you speak more professionally in workplace conversations. A very common and useful sentence is, "The client requested this," which you can use when referring to something asked for by the person or company receiving the service. Let's continue with the 10th word, presentation. Presentation means a talk or explanation where someone shows information, ideas, or a project to a group of people. It is a very common word used in workplaces, offices, and schools when someone shares information using speech, slides, or visual materials. Presentations are often used to explain plans, report results, or introduce new ideas. You can use presentation when talking about showing or explaining something to an audience. For example, in the present tense, you can say, "I prepare a presentation for the meeting," or "She gives a presentation to the team." In the past tense, you might say, "I gave a presentation yesterday," or "They presented their project." For the future, you can say, "I will give a presentation tomorrow," or "We will present our ideas next week." It is often used with verbs like prepare, give, or deliver, such as prepare a presentation or give a presentation. Using presentation correctly helps you communicate clearly in professional and academic situations. A very common and useful sentence is, "I have a presentation today," which you can use when telling others that you will speak or present information to a group. Let's continue with the 11th word, workload. Workload means the amount of work or number of tasks that a person is responsible for completing. It is a very common word used in workplaces and professional environments when talking about how much work someone has to do within a certain period of time. A workload can be light when there are only a few tasks, or heavy when there are many responsibilities. You can use workload when talking about the quantity of work someone has. For example, in the present tense, you can say, "My workload is heavy this week," or "She manages her workload well." In the past tense, you might say, "My workload was very high last month," or "They reduced the workload for the team." For the future, you can say, "My workload will increase next week," or "We will manage the workload together." It is often used with verbs like manage, reduce, or increase, such as manage a workload or reduce the workload. Using workload correctly helps you talk about responsibilities and work pressure more clearly in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, I have a lot of workload today, which you can use when explaining that you have many tasks to complete. Let's continue with the 12th word, brainstorm. Brainstorm means to think of many ideas quickly, usually as a group, in order to solve a problem or create something new. It is a very common word used in workplaces, meetings, and creative discussions when people share different ideas and suggestions. Brainstorming helps teams explore possibilities and find the best solution. You can use brainstorm when you are discussing ideas or trying to find solutions. For example, in the present tense, you can say, I brainstorm ideas for the project, or she brainstorms with her team. In the past tense, you might say, I brainstormed several ideas, or they brainstormed during the meeting. For the future, you can say, I will brainstorm new ideas, or we will brainstorm solutions together. It is often used with words like ideas, solutions, or plans, such as brainstorm ideas or brainstorm solutions. Using brainstorm correctly helps you describe creative thinking and teamwork in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, let's brainstorm, which you can use to suggest thinking of ideas together. Let's continue with the 13th word, hierarchy. Hierarchy means a system or structure, an organization, where people or positions are ranked from the highest level to the lowest level. It is a common word used in workplaces, companies, and organizations to describe the order of authority and responsibility. In a hierarchy, people at higher levels usually have more authority and decision-making power than those at lower levels. You can use hierarchy when talking about the structure or levels within an organization. For example, in the present tense, you can say, the company has a clear hierarchy, or she understands the hierarchy in the organization. In the past tense, you might say, the company changed its hierarchy, or they explained the hierarchy to new employees. For the future, you can say, the company will improve its hierarchy, or we will understand the hierarchy better over time. It is often used with words like company, organization, or management structure. Using hierarchy correctly helps you talk about organizational structure and leadership more clearly in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, every organization has a hierarchy, which explains that most workplaces have different levels of authority. Let's continue with the 14th word, clarify. Clarify means to make something clearer or easier to understand. It is a very common word used in workplaces, meetings, and professional communication when someone explains an idea, instruction, or message in a way that removes confusion. Clarifying information helps ensure that everyone understands the same thing and avoids misunderstandings. You can use clarify when you want to explain something more clearly. For example, in the present tense, you can say, I clarify the instructions for the team, or she clarifies the details during the meeting. In the past tense, you might say, I clarified the problem, or they clarified the requirements for the project. For the future, you can say, I will clarify this later, or we will clarify the plan tomorrow. It is often used with words like instructions, details, ideas, or questions. Using clarify correctly helps you communicate more effectively in professional situations. A very common and useful sentence is, let me clarify, which you can use when you want to explain something again in a clearer way. Let's continue with the 15th word, optimize. Optimize means to make something as effective, efficient, or useful as possible. It is a common word used in workplaces, business, technology, and project management when people want to improve processes, systems, or results. When something is optimized, it works better and produces the best possible outcome with the available resources. You can use optimize when talking about improving performance or making something more efficient. For example, in the present tense, you can say, I optimize my workflow, or she optimizes the company's processes. In the past tense, you might say, I optimized the system, or they optimized the production process. For the future, you can say, I will optimize the strategy, or we will optimize the project results. It is often used with words like processes, systems, performance, or workflow. Using optimize correctly helps you sound more professional when talking about improvement and efficiency. A very common and useful sentence is, we need to optimize this process, which you can use when suggesting ways to make something work better.